Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Call of Duty 4 Remastered veteran walkthrough. This is Death from Above. I love this mission. It's kind of funny too. There's an interesting history behind this particular one with me. When we first played it, I liked it back in the day because I thought it's like watching the news. You know how on the news they show you those really grainy footage from like some aerial vehicle of Iraq or in Kurdistan, and it's always just kind of like this lens. You're just like, I can't even see a damn thing what's happening, and like the war in Iraq is like it felt like you were there, you know. I know that sounds really cliche, doesn't it, and silly, but this really looks like confusing, hard to tell friendly from foe, wartime kind of stuff. And it's, of course, the majestic AC-130, which means so much different to what we know right now, as I watch these people stack up and then hit them with these ridiculous weapons. And it's funny, too. After this game, we came to be so familiar with this killing machine. You know, how many times have you used the AC-130 in Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer? A lot, yeah? So when you come back to this and you know exactly what each of these guns is good at doing, and you just kind of sit there thinking, God, can you remember when we didn't know what this was and this was new? This was cool. And the thing I really appreciate about this is it's kind of hard to see stuff. It's got that awesome crappy graininess to it that makes me really appreciate like the Predator's vision in the original Predator, where it's so shit looking it's awesome because it's, you know, it's not all nice and smooth and everything, and then in Alien vs Predator when it looks too nice, like, no, I want that shitty VHS looking one. It looked great, give me that. But just playing this back and listening to, you know, the super grim analysis that the guy who's with you tells you, who's just so deadpan about us ending people's lives in bulk with this incredible weapon. There's just something really dark in tone about this mission, but really fun when it comes to launching death from the sky. And then when your friendlies come in, listening to what he says is imperative because he helps you navigate the area and hit the right people, and then you see your team who have the strobes on, but the strobe is not that obvious. Like, it's obvious, but it's also kinda not. How many times have you been just glancing, you see something moving, and you send the big ol' 105mm, and it's like, friendly fire will not be tolerated. I did that so many times on this because I was having so much fun, just launching, look at this, and then people fly. It feels so satisfying, so visceral, and I don't think they captured it in the same way they captured it here ever again. You know, there was the one, wasn't there, in Modern Warfare 3 where there was Paris and you were dropping bombs there. It felt good, but it didn't feel like this. Like, there's something to be said about this particular one. It's just weird. And I grew to find this level quite boring when I was playing it when it was new. Thought it was good the first time, but after that it just kind of lasted a bit too long. But playing this again, just the contrast of this, I really appreciated it, and I couldn't tell you why other than it's been a while since I've been in the AC-130, and God do I miss it. It's interesting as well, isn't it, to see how the series moved from such a powerful kill streak like this and such a dominating aspect of the multiplayer, and they just gentrified and gentrified and gentrified and diminished and diminished and diminished, and it got to the point where like every single kill streak now, where you are in some kind of orbital vehicle that fires down onto the map, it has no balls. It is so neutered. It has been just completely castrated in its effectiveness because there are things like spawn protection. There are things like the maps are now designed like dog shit with no roofs and no thought given to these aerial kill streaks. And then when you do fire these machines, it doesn't feel satisfying to do so. The HUD is clunky. The UI is far too complicated for no real reason. They've taken away the simplicity and just the sheer feel of what made these moments great. And in essence, they've completely missed the point. And it's getting worse. I used the kill streaks on Infinite Warfare the other day when I just bumped in. I did some local multiplayer against the bots just to see what the guns were like and the maps and everything and how it played and how it looked. I played half a game before I turned it off. I just didn't like it. And I got all my kill streaks. You know, I got some weird wannabe Predator missile, I got some weird wannabe AC-130, and it was just so uninspired. I didn't like the colour scheme, I didn't like the maps, I just felt like it was an ugly game, an ugly, poorly designed game, and I hate to say that, guys, because I've seen quality where others have seen turds for many years, and I've backed that by saying, it looks like a good game. Black Ops 3 was a multiplayer that I didn't like, but there was quality there. I think it looked fine. I thought it looked fun. I just didn't want to play it, didn't feel it. The map seemed okay. The abilities seemed okay. The guns felt cool. Everything about that game seemed okay. Advanced Warfare, I didn't much enjoy online. Didn't think it was too great. Ghosts, I thought online was dog shit, but I loved playing the combat training because those maps were, when you weren't playing the massive ones, they were kind of fun and I liked the guns. And then before that, of course, wasn't it Black Ops 2, which is wonderful online. So, I hate to be the guy who's banging on Infinite Warfare, but I felt the colour scheme was off. I felt the flow of the maps was off. I felt the look of the characters looked weird and the movement of them just didn't look natural. And the majority of the guns I just don't think are that interesting. They're kind of the same thing. Everything looks like a fucking P90 in the SMG category, and the rifles are just, assault rifles. I just didn't like the kill streaks, didn't like the classes, didn't like the perks. I didn't like anything about that multiplayer. I can't believe it, I'm stunned that I'm saying this, but it's true. And then we go back to something like this, and to a lesser extent, something like Black Ops. The original Black Ops definitely diminished the value of air support. It was still good, but it wasn't as good. It was better at the beginning, before they added all that, you don't get the red triangle around you when you spawn to give you a couple seconds of protection thing, to the chopper gunner and to the was it an airship it was called, the other one? But at the beginning, none of that existed, so you could do some serious damage, and those levels were designed to complement those vehicles, and those vehicles worked really well, but they were still nowhere near as brutal as what the AC-130 could be on a map like Afghan, back in Modern Warfare 2. And then Modern Warfare 3 came out, which had not only a Reaper and a Predator missile, but it also had the AC-130, and it just wasn't the same, because there was far too many mechanics they'd put in there to compensate for the people who used to play Call of Duty and get absolutely stomped. Because back in the day, there were people who had 0 and negative KDs, and they'd put tons of time into the game, but they were the people that the better players used to stomp on. They were the fuel to forge the better players. And they never had a problem with it, because it was just their experience. They ran around, they shot things, they had fun. Because nobody was obsessed with KD, nobody was obsessed with win-loss, score per minute, any of these statistics that have now turned these games, and these games in general, and this franchise, into such a campy, try-hardy, fucking, quitting games to preserve statistics, dashboardy quitty, just turning them into into hard work, into jobs. Can you remember the last time you played a multiplayer where you weren't obsessed with stats? Mine was COD 4, and now it's Titanfall 2, and I think that's why I appreciate Titanfall 2 so much, because there's none of that weird pressure, none of that weird stress that I put on myself to perform well. And I have no idea why I ever did it, but you just kind of do, you get caught up in it, and it's all because of those insignificant numbers. And don't get me wrong, I do think that KD is important, because it's a metric on how to measure your improvements. But at the end of the day, if it's affecting how you feel when you play and how you play in general, then it's not a good thing. I'm all for people trying to improve, and I'm all for people trying to measure improvement, but there are dudes people who will literally not play certain maps because they know it's detrimental to what they're trying to do. People who use the same gun every single match. People who do the same route every single match. People who use the same everything and never mix it up. I don't get that. Kill boosting. Kill boosting would not have been a thing if not for the kill streaks. I don't think I ever saw kill boosting in COD 4 because the kill streaks flowed so quickly. It was easy to get a chopper in COD 4 because they flowed into each other perfectly. And the thing with the chopper is, it did a lot of work. And if you were one of those players who called in your chopper after death, it'd earn you your other kill streaks again. And it was one of those things where it was so easy, but at the same time, it mattered. And I think that's why you didn't see a lot of that shit in the game. And that's not to say that that shit didn't exist. Because I'm not one of those people that's going to tell you that, oh, they weren't camping in COD 4, or they weren't this in COD 4. All of the shit that exists now existed in COD 4 to a lesser extent. And the only reason it was lesser is because it was newer, it was fresher, and people just had not figured out that it was viable. As soon as people find those exploits, that's when that shit starts to turn up. But there was plenty of things that were there to annoy people to begin with, that we didn't need that stuff, and it turned up later on, and it just got exacerbated, and then today we've got this uninspired, double-jumping, wall-running, multicoloured nightmare. But thank you for watching, and you take care now.